Okay, going to be talking about diseases of the blood and blood forming organs, along with certain diseases of the immune system. So these all fall in D50 through D89. And this covers all types of anemias, coagulation defects, hemophilia, and likewise related. Here's how the chapter is organized. D50 through 53 is nutritional anemia. D55 through 59, hemolytic anemias. D60 through 64, aplastic and other anemias and other bone marrow failure syndromes. Then we have 65 through 69 for coagulation defects. D70 through 77, other disorders. 78 is intraoperative and post-procedural. And then we have D89 and D80, through D89, certain disorders involving the immune system. This chapter does not have any official guidelines. There are some notes in the tabular, however, and it's important to pay close attention to them. There are a number of notes in the tabular that will tell the coder to use an additional external cause code to identify the cause if it's drug induced. In other words, if you're having coagulation effects due to a medication, you would use that additional code to indicate that. And there's similar instructions for agranulocytosis conditions that are drug induced. So just because somebody has a disease of the blood disorder, if it's caused by a medication, we want to make sure that we capture that. And again, as talked about, we have used additional codes for adverse effects. We'll spend a whole week talking about adverse effects, but you can kind of see some examples here with these four codes, the D52.1, drug-induced folate deficiency anemia, D59.0, drug-induced autoimmune, hemolytic anemia, D61.1, drug-induced aplastic anemia, D64.2, aplastic anemia due to other external agents, and so on. This is another reason why you need to always use a tabular. If you just code right out of it, you will miss the use additional codes to identify associated conditions. And we see a lot of these with things like sickle cell anemia, neutropenia, all these other different types of things. There are code first and code also. Code also always means that whatever code follows the terms, code also comes second, code first, pretty straightforward. It means that the condition is coded first. With D61.82, the myelophysis, we also code the underlying disorders such as the breast cancer or TB. When we have anemia in a neoplastic disease, as we sometimes do, we always code the cancer first, followed by the anemia. And then you'll also see in the tabular for anemia and chronic kidney disease, we want to code first the underlying chronic kidney disease, namely the code from the N18 code category. And again, more on these instructions. There are a lot of additional codes, things that will tell you that additional codes, something outside is causing this blood disorder. We want to make sure that we capture that. Typically, these are found in chapter 20. And certain blood disorders and disorders involving the immune system are related to underlying diseases, drugs, toxins, all these different types of things. And then, of course, the adverse effects. And then if the malignant neoplasm is causing the granulocytosis, we need to code that as well. And it kind of goes back to the general guideline that we want to code all conditions that affect the management of the patient at the encounter. And we see sometimes more than one instruction, as we see here with the 89.81, the graft versus host disease. We code first the underlying cause, and then we use additional codes to capture the diarrhea or the other manifestation of graft versus host disease. Likewise, myelofibrosis, the D75.81, we would code first the underlying disorder, such as breast cancer. We'd use an additional code, if applicable, for associated therapy, myelodysplastic syndrome, and then we use an additional code for the adverse effects, if that applies. There's some very detailed guidelines that are mentioned in regards to cancer and how we code anemia associated with malignancy. If the encounter or the admission or the anemia associated with malignancy, and the only thing that the patient's being treated for is the anemia, the appropriate code for the malignancy will come first. And that would be the D63.0, anemia in neoplastic disease. There are different directions for coding anemia with chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and radiation therapy. So if we have a patient who's seen for management of anemia associated with an adverse effect of the administration of chemotherapy or immunotherapy, and the only treatment that the patient's having at that encounter is for the anemia, we would code the anemia first, then the cancer, and then the adverse effect of the chemotherapy. And again, likewise, patient with management of anemia is having an adverse effect of the radiation. The anemia would come first, followed by the neoplasm, and then the radiological procedure and radiotherapy is the cause of an abnormal reaction of the patient. So a way to think of this is that if a patient's being seen for anemia, and the anemia is related to the cancer comes first. Otherwise, it would be the anemia. I hope you found that useful. We'll have some more guidelines to go over, some more code first, and other things in the next video lecture.